good, Webs? It is Friday Eve.
Hello. It is Friday Eve. Also, I'm just going to say right off the top for anyone who watched the last show, I'm sorry if my audio was terrible. I had no idea. I hope that it's better today.
Life happens, fam. Life happens. Indeed, indeed. Another hoodlum situation coming live to the internets or the interwebs, as we should say. It's all good. It's all good.
It's me.
Yeah, we're gonna continue our hustle with the Canvas situation, trying to give people some strategies, some ideas as we start this mandatory migration to Canvas for Clark County School District teachers. Like there are no options, but there are options if we look at it and start planning for them. And we're gonna kind of talk about that a little bit. So tonight's show, Webs, we're gonna call Sutori and Canvas. I think that yeah, they make a great pair. We're gonna kind of demonstrate how you compare those things out. Sutori does have a cost. I pay the cost every year just because I think it's a dynamite tool, even though it's not my primary means of instruction. It is a great tool to have in your back pocket when disaster strikes. And I'm not a logistics person. I think you're more logistical of us too.
Me.
But I do like to I like to have more tools than I need. So I generally like to have like 75 million tools. And if I don't need them, great. At least I had them. I'd rather have more tools than I need than, less and then fall into a situation where this particular tool is obsolete or doesn't work. And, I didn't have, let me put it this way. I like redundancy in tools because that just means I have a bunch of tools that can do the same thing. And if one dies, I got 17 other ones to do that same muzzle.
You are very Batman-esque in that respect.
I mean, dude, you find something that does a thing, you want to find five other things that does a similar thing, but not exactly that thing. And I think that's how I roll with all of my educational digital tools or whatever. But as we always do, we're going to start with that ask a software developer question. And yeah, we're going to talk strategies for avoiding work because I think that is going to be a super necessary thing going forward for our teachers in August. In that, we're not going to have a lot of time to be planning between now and then. So, Webs, as a software developer, how do you avoid some of the work that you do or have to do?
So I'm going to say probably my favorite way to avoid doing work is to automate it. I'm a huge fan of automation. And it sounds like it's a really complicated thing, but there are fortunately like a lot of tools out there that have made it far more accessible than it used to be. If you're an iOS owner, iPhone owner, you have iOS and there's shortcuts. If you're looking for something that goes across multiple platforms, IFTTT, Zapier. If you are a team school, like our friends up in Washoe, there's Power Automate that you can integrate. So if there is a thing that I can automate, I automate it. For example, at the end of every day, I do the same routine. I turn off the lights in my room and I open an app that tracks like my sleep. And so I got a little NFC tag that when I set my phone on it, it triggers a shortcut up on my phone that will turn off the lights and open that application. So those are the kinds of things that I do using the tools that someone else has built, because all of those things offer you kind of like starter kits or like libraries that you can pull from where other people have created shortcuts or IFTTT recipes or whatever they're called for that particular genre of automation tool. And you can use ones that people have already created. And just the same way you would with recipes in a cookbook, you test out or use the recipes that are there, and then eventually you learn to kind of put together your own recipes to meet your own needs. So that's probably the biggest way that I kind of like don't do work is I let a robot do it for me. Because even in like just everyday life, like I decided to buy a Roomba because I really hate vacuuming and I won't do it. So I have a Roomba and twice a week it goes on its little route around the house, and my house has never been more vacuumed. So yeah, I use the tools that other people have built and try and automate things as much as possible. Like if I can put something like a bill on auto pay, if I can use a tool that someone else has built that I can take advantage of, then that's what I do.
So, in terms of a classroom teacher, what might be ways that they would integrate automation into their process? What are places that would be
Mm.
opportunities?
So, the other kind of automated tool I use is a text expander. When I was in the classroom, I've actually recently moved to a different text expander, but I paid for text expander, like the tool. If you Google it, or I can share a link in the chat. It's like $5 a month, I think, and I use that a lot for repetitive comments. So if I was commenting on someone's, giving them feedback on a paper, if I was doing report card comments, I actually had a text expander expansion where I typed exclamation point RCC, and it would expand out into like where I could fill in the kid's name and say like such and such scored this on this particular assessment. They're doing really good at, and then it would give me a drop down of choices and I could pick one. It still allowed flexibility to be able to like customize the comments, but the basic boilerplate that I had to report on every single kid was already there. And I estimate it probably saved me 3 hours writing report card comments because I could just type those 4 characters and fill in the blanks and be on my way. There's quite a few tools within the Google suite that like there's integrations that you can add that will automate things like grade checking, or using even a tool like GoFormative. GoFormative has automatic grading. Canvas has automatic grading. Taking advantage of those types of things as much as possible, I think, are great ways of integrating automation into the school day
Awesome sauce.
or a teacher's workflow, I guess.
So I mean, definitely concur. Again, I'm not the logistics person that Webs is by any stretch. So in terms of my automation, I still make my bread by hand, unfortunately, a lot of times. But um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to look into between now and August because it is very, very rapidly approaching when we're gonna have to go back to school. Go ahead, Webs.
Oh, I would just say like maybe dip your toe into like I would recommend IFTTT. Xavier is nice and has a fair bit of integration, but you have to skip to a paid account pretty quickly. And IFTTT gives you a bit more like leeway. If you're on an iPhone, I would highly recommend Shortcuts, or an iPad. I'd highly recommend Shortcuts because that's free. If you're like a Microsoft district, like our friends up in Washoe, check out Microsoft Power Automate. There are a lot of free options there to mess around with as well. But the key really to automating things is looking for patterns and like repetitive tasks that you do all the time. So, for example, maybe something like uh, attendance, right? Like maybe you have an attendance spreadsheet or something, and there is a way that you can build out a little shortcut that just says like, oh, if a kid is here, I hit this button and it'll automatically like cycle through and check something off or whatever. Or if there's some sort of check that you have to do every day, like just start looking for patterns and things that you do, like report card comments or feedback or something, and note those, and those are where you can start to build your automations.
Indeed, indeed. What is the significance of the hunter orange hat in Michigan, Webs?
The hunter orange hat,
Yeah,
like just hunting hats.
your mom said that there's a significance to a orange hunting hat in Michigan, is what she said in comments.
The hunter orange hat has an important significance here in Michigan, but not until
Was it is
oh
it deer season or something?
because your hat. Okay, yeah, it's a hunting hat so that you
Oh,
don't get shot by other hunters.
oh, indeed. So I don't want to be
Yeah,
shot by the hunter. I don't. That's one of my things not to be to avoid. So that works.
it's
That
deer
definitely
hunting
works.
season. November 15th is the start of deer hunting season.
Indeed, indeed. The things you learn on streaming programs. Indeed.
It's true.
All right, so yeah, Webs, we're going to kind of transition to an all-time favorite topic here: planning versus a plan. And I think this is going to be more important the closer we get to August. That plans fail, but planning prepares you for the plan to fail, right? So, you are undoubtedly going to go in like uh, perceive that things are bulletproof, and then on August the 4th they're going to pull the rug from underneath of you. Or let's use the whole peanuts analogy: the football will be pulled out in front of you before you kick it, and you're going to be angry
This
straight
is one
away.
of my favorite quotes ever from Leonard Snart in the Flash TV show, and it is make the plan, execute the plan, watch the plan go off the rails, throw away the plan.
That be the hustle. And the crazy thing about it is, if you spit planning is an active process. So that's something we want to do. You want to be prepared. A plan is a passive process. It's I am finished. I no longer need to do anything. And no doubt plans, especially in school districts, change on a revolving door basis. Lord knows we have 5 days between the start of our contracts and the first day of school for students.
Yikes.
So that is not going to be the most mellow situation. And then, yeah, and suddenly people have to master Canvas in a month while doing all these other mandatory trainings, that math, asynchronous 12-hour math trainings and all kind of other wild stuff. So, yes, it will be very interesting. But this is why we're having this conversation now, because you don't need to master Canvas. Knowledge of Canvas is a continuum. And even somebody who uses Canvas all the time, like myself, I have not mastered Canvas. I don't know all the tricks of the trade or whatever. I know enough to be able to get my content to my students, for my students to be successful, excuse me, and for me to be able to go to sleep at a reasonable hour, which I think is what you actually want to have happen, not all the mastery pass and this other thing and this thing work here and how to put that. That's going to drive you crazy.
I was even thinking about this in relation to my job. Like when we get a new tool, we don't go through all the documentation like cover to cover. We start using the tool, and as needed, we go look up the documentation and reference it. Because one, you can't memorize everything. Like that's just not going to happen. But it's much more practical to use what you know, and then when you get stuck, go look something up than to try and like cover to cover master every tool. Like I've been using Terraform for a little while now. Do I know every single little bit of something that you can do in Terraform? No. But I've bookmarked a couple things that I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is something we have available to us. But if I really need to confirm or deny that, I'm going to go look it up. We do that a lot in my job.
Well, I
Like
mean,
you don't.
video games, man. Nobody reads the video games instructions. You just stop playing. And when you get to a place where I don't know how to do that particular move, I either Google it, I found somebody else who's done it. Like, we do that in regular life all the time. But the expectation for educators is to suddenly sit down, learn something cold out of context, and then be able to utilize that thing for student success. And that's just not the way that things stick in your head, unfortunately.
Also, there are diminishing gains from the amount of time that you invest in mastering a thing to the amount that you get out of it. Like, yeah, I could learn every single in and out of Canvas, but it's going to go like this or like this. Where like, okay, I start out like learning a whole bunch of things that are really useful, and then the more in depth I get into that tool, the less it's really going to benefit me. So is it really worth the amount of time I'm investing in order to like master that tool when I could probably do 90% of my job with 20% of the tool?
Or it's academic learning versus practical learning, right? So, I mean, anybody who's learned a language, if you sit in a classroom and learn Spanish, that's a different experience than you being thrown in Mexico City and be forced to use Spanish in order to survive. Two totally different scenarios where the academic person might be able to speak the Queen Spanish or whatever in an academic setting, and do, if that same person was placed in Mexico City and say it's sink or swim time, is that person going to have the same ability to deal with things as again? I know I have never had any classic Chinese training. I know survival Mandarin though. So when I was hungry, we figured out some ways to go get food. So there's a different situation where you have to rely on certain skills and certain practices then when you're sitting in a classroom during the summer, in a safe space, learning something that 2 months from now you're gonna be like, I know I remember that, but like you said, in terms of diminishing returns, there was no point to utilizing that information at the time. And then in one ear, out the other, I take a little multiple choice test. Oh, you mastered that? Yeah, I mastered it in a setting that is so clinical that it's worthless.
Sanitized, yeah.
So, so kind of getting the idea of also the idea of planning webs in terms of you cannot go to any tool not knowing what you need the tool to do. So I believe that, again, we said this the last time, going and learning Canvas. Well, if I don't have the actual expectations of this is the lesson I need to teach, this is what the goals and outcomes of this lesson is supposed to be, then how can Canvas help me get there? You sitting and putting it in Canvas doesn't work.
I think that's a double-edged thing coming from the perspective of a brand new learner, because as someone who is deep into what is out there for technology, it makes it easier for us to figure out like, oh yeah, I know that tool exists and that tool exists and that tool exists. But for example, Sutori, I don't know how many folks in the audience like have never heard of Sutori before. So how could they possibly know what to use Sutori for if they've never seen it or used it? And so in that case, I would say, one, listen to the show more and we'll share with you what tools are out there and kind of give you a little like guided tour. But also like play with a thing, get an idea of what it does under lower pressure. And this is something we've advocated from when we were DLCs. Always introduce a new tool in a very low pressure environment when it comes to the task that you're trying to do. Like we tend to recommend like allow students and yourself time to play around with that tool first and just explore it before you start applying it to a task. Because if you take a brand new tool and try to apply it immediately to a task, it's going to be a recipe for frustration for both you and your students, no matter who you're doing that with. So experiment, play around with it, check it out, see if you can see a purpose for whatever it is. And then go from there, kind of like, make a note of it. Hey, I know this tool can be used for this. I'll kind of keep that in my back pocket, like you were saying at the top. Have this sort of utility belt of tools to draw from, and then you'll be able to say, hey, oh yeah, that's right. This is a tool that I know about, and I can go use that for this particular situation.
But also, having the idea that teaching has changed because it hasn't changed, right? So you still need to have your long range plans. You still have to have the understanding of your standards and objectives, and this is the pacing that we're going to deal with and whatnot. And that's what I mean by having that planning done ahead of time. So then the weight is simply learning the tool, not learning how to teach all the stuff. I've got all that done, right? All my ingredients are here. I just need to know how to use this new machine in order to make the bread. But again, if you look at any industry, right? Fundamentally, they have not changed over the thousands of years we've been making bread. It's still the same recipe. We just got machines that help us do it quicker. I was watching this, and this is kind of a bad example, but I was watching this show about if you've seen the Crime of the Century on HBO about the opioid epidemic, and they showed initially you had to it was hand cut the poppy seeds. Now they got industrial machines. This is the reason why we've seen this explosion of opioids, because I can get to it a lot more efficiently. But it's the same process fundamentally, right? Still harvesting this stuff. So again, bad example. It's a great documentary if you got HBO Max. It's a great documentary. Kind of scary, but it is what it is. Anything else to add, Webbs?
No.
All right, cool in the game. So let's get to it. All right, why Sutori? And
I was going to ask, you mentioned that you pay for Sutori. Do you happen to know offhand how much it costs?
I believe it's like $70 a year.
Okay.
And the reason why I pay for it, you'll see the reason why I pay for it.
So it's less than $10 a month, really.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme, but again, I'm not going to speak for anybody's finances, but in terms of convenience, power, and efficacy, it is a bargain. I think it's like $79 a year or something like that.
So this is actually a conversation that we're having right now at my work, is about like, you pay for a tool and what are the benefits you get for that tool for the price. And sometimes you can do a direct, like, oh, it's going to cost me this much. It's going to save me this much time. Therefore it's either worth it or it's not. but sometimes there are added things like what do you call that in baseball? Like the untangibles.
Mm.
There's the untangibles that are benefits, like you have this consistency. And again, kind of going back to my job, a lot of what I do is we build things and infrastructure as code so that it's very repeatable and consistent, because as humans we forget things.
Mm.
That's one of the advantages of automating stuff, is you know it's going to be done consistently every single time. So while a tool may offer you a savings of your time, that tool may also offer you the consistency of that job getting done exactly the same every time, and among other possible intangibles. So I would encourage anyone who's trying to make that decision to not just think about the time savings, but also think about the intangible savings you might get, either peace of mind, or maybe it's a convenience thing, right? Like fast food is there because we can run out, get it, and it's here and we're good, unless you go to Rubio's and then it takes 30 minutes to get your food, but I digress. Um, um, yeah, so like think about the other ways that a tool might benefit you on top of saving you time. And then you may see like, you know what, this might really be worth it, because for the cost that I might be paying, it would save me in a lot of different ways.
So sociology, we say they're manifest functions. So they're the things we see that are obvious advantages, and they're latent functions. There are things that benefits that we didn't see at the original time, right? And so manifest and latent functions being what they are, $79 in the grand scheme of things over a 9 month period. Man, you're talking like but $7 a month or something crazy like that, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the reason why Sutori is such an attractive tool in this instance is it is a compiler. So I can go and have a scenario where I can build an entire lesson on a page with all kind of diverse tools. That page can then be embedded into a Canvas page, but it still exists independent of Canvas. So if Canvas were to go away, I don't really care. I have that same lesson, same thing built into this other tool that I'm paying for, with the expectation that the cloud storage and stuff would still be there. The tool's been around for a few years. It was called History first. And I actually started paying for it when it was a startup. Changed its name from Nas had a company called History, so he changed the name from History to Sutori 2 or 3 years back, 4 years back, something crazy like that. Former teacher started it as a history for history instructors first, and then it kind of morphed into this other thing. If you've ever used Blend Space back in the day, kind of a Blend Space, it has a Blend Space vibe. But we're going to go dive into that after this little initial conversation about the whys. We're going to dive into it and kind of put a lesson together very quickly inside there so people can see everything. Go ahead, Webbs.
So I feel like this has now become a bit of a pattern, is this idea of like a layer of abstraction, or similarly maybe like a back end for front end is what we call it in development. So you develop all of your stuff in these more agnostic tools to put into a learning management system, so that should you switch learning management systems, you don't lose all of your content. You simply have to redirect the contents that you've already created to a different learning management system. And I think as a whole, that's actually a really solid strategy that I hope teachers take away from this, is building that content in a place that you know you won't lose it, either in a Google Drive or a Sutori, or we talked about Wiser on Sunday. And that way, no matter what learning management system your district pivots to, whether it's Teams or Canvas or Google or Schoology or Blackboard, like you always have that content. It's just a question of where you plug it in.
And to me, it is. I've been in Clark County now almost 15 years. I know that they change crap every 2 seconds. Watch your back. Like, just make sure that you have stuff that, if for some reason Canvas goes the way of the dodo, you've got your stuff still straight. Because what you don't want to do is go and invest so much time learning Canvas that suddenly you dump all your crap in there and they say, oh, psych, you could go back to Google Classroom. And now you're like, oh, this is no bueno.
Make the plan, execute the plan, watch the plan go off the rails, throw away the plan.
And again, we have to start talking about the reasons why you would like Canvas, right? First of all, it's going to roster your kids for you. I don't have to go and manually roster anybody. It's going to roster the kids automatically. Like Google Classroom, I had to send an invitation out. The kid has accepted an invitation, all that kind of stuff like that. Brand new kids come in, I've got to make sure they have an invitation. As a specialist teacher, it was always a headache when you got a brand new kid and suddenly they weren't in the actual classroom teachers Google Classroom. Now I got to go and figure out what the classroom code for the actual classroom teacher is, or let them. This, it's automatically rostered. Their schedule is learned from IC. It's rostered for you. So benefit, rostering. Benefit, IC is going to be linked. The grade book is going to be linked to Canvas. So bada bing, grades are going right back. Ideally, they're going back and forth between Canvas seamlessly. Ideally, okay, we'll put ideally. So the two main benefits to Canvas are simply logistical. They're not instructional, in my opinion. They are, your kids are going to be automatically in the class. I don't have to worry about that stuff. And when I give the kids the grades are going to automatically show up in IC. So keeping that in mind, that I want the grades to be in IC, in Canvas, because I don't want to have to grade by hand or anything like that. I want the grades to immediately appear, and the kids are going to show up. We're going to utilize those two functionalities, or make sure that we don't lose those two functionalities in any process that we roll with. Right, those are the two things to me that are the main deals. In terms of differentiation or anything like that, I mean, they do have mastery pass and stuff are great if you learn how to utilize those things, but you've been doing differentiation ideally before the dawn of technology. You should be able to differentiate analog style. Shouldn't be a problem. All right. So not going to delve into mastery pass and things like that. We're just going to say, look, I want to be able to have a kid's use the speed grader inside of Canvas, grade a kid's paper. God bless you. Anything else I can fudge in the grand scheme of things. All right. And that's where we're going to operate from. Anything to add on that, Webbs?
No, I think that's solid. Show us Sutori.
All right. So we're going to actually put together a lesson. All right. We're going to go and deal with video games. That's what I'm teaching my first hour at for summer school. And we're going to kind of build this into a Sutori, and then build that Sutori into our Canvas course. And just for some background, I use Sutori mainly for my kindergarten students this school year. So during the pandemic, it was great because it kept them off of Canvas first and foremost, but allowed me also to structure lessons so they could go from goals, videos, tools up in one go. The other thing that's going to be very attractive to you with Sutori is Clever. So it integrates with Clever seamlessly. So your students can enroll themselves into your Sutori instance like that. So suddenly all your kids have Sutori accounts as well. They can do their work in Sutori and then turn it into Canvas, which also is a benefit. I have a bunch of the kindergarten parents and first grade parents who linked their students' accounts to mine. You can do that right through Clever. I believe that Clever is going to be the rostering or whatever system for the Clark County School District for the time being. I just believe they spent quite a bit of money, negotiating that situation. So we shouldn't have a fear of Clever going away anytime soon, at least in the next couple of years or not. All right. So that's the other like huge thing, that if your kids are using Clever as they are to get into Canvas, they can also use Clever to link themselves in Sutori so they get that information as well. All right. So that also kills that situation. So let's check it out. So Bloxels is what I'm using this summer. If you're not familiar with Bloxels,
I love Bloxels.
it's a little pricey now. For 25 licenses, $125. But this is a situation where you go like beg and plead with your principal and say, hey, look, I just need this. It's not great for like specialists and stuff. If you're going to have more than 25 kids, kind of stinks. I only have 8 kids this summer. And so I was like, hey, go ahead, Webbs.
Do they do named licensing or concurrent licensing? So do you have to assign a license to each kid, or do you just have 10 licenses you can use and you can move kids as needed?
I can move them when I need to. So
okay. So I learned this tip from one of my colleagues is if you're ever trying to negotiate price, because as he says, every price is negotiable. So if you contact a company and you want to negotiate price, check and see if they're doing concurrent pricing or named user pricing, because concurrent is going to be like if you were a specialist and say you had 30 licenses, and you could just rotate those licenses across all of your classes versus having to have named licenses where, it has to be assigned to each individual kid. And usually if you ask them, if you don't ask, they probably won't tell you, but if you ask them, they'll tell you if it's concurrent or named, and you can get a better discount.
Yeah, I mean, I just took a CSV, uploaded the kids' stuff up there. I could have called them Mr. Lane 1, Mr. Lane 2, Mr. Lane 3, Mr. Lane 4, Mr. Lane 5, Mr. Lane 6, whatever, and just gave multiple kids the same access to the situation. The only danger with that is making sure the kids didn't delete the previous kids' work or whatever. That would be the issue there. But yeah, that's a great strategy to have. But I love Bloxels because they got all the tutorials are there, all that stuff is there. Even if you've never built a video game inside of Bloxels, everything is there for you. It is, my opinion, is worth the price. My students love this stuff. I was a pretty decent Bloxels user before, but like not having to actually shoot any videos and stuff for things is a huge bonus. They also have that student workbook that you can give the kids as well as a PDF, so they can kind of walk through stuff as well. But anyway, we're going to use Bloxels as our idea as we do things. All right. We're also going to deal with the fact that video games are storytelling, right? So I'm going to use my Google Drive here. So what I built was I wanted each of the kids, as they built their characters. Right now we're on character building. They're going to take a screenshot, upload the screenshot, give us a basic, idea about what the character was born in, a little bit of bio, and then they were going to use the graph here in order to tell us how fast the person is, the intelligence stuff. If you ever been on Marvel's website or DC's website, they've got all those metrics for every character, how smart they are, how powerful they are, whatever. It was very interesting. A lot of the students, there's one student in particular who made their Speedy was the name of their guy. So he was 100% speed, but his intelligence was like 20. And he was like, he's not very smart. He can fly by farting and stuff like that. It was really like interesting. This young man's thought process was really, really interesting. But
do you give them like free reign, or do you give them like, oh, it has to equal a total of this much?
They could do whatever they want. If they wanted to make the person like Dr. Manhattan, where he was like 100 and all of them, and who am I to say that you can't have a character that has 100 in all of them? But none of them did that. No one did that.
Interesting.
No one maxed out their character, which is also hilarious, but here's what it is. And so I'd like to show you all the way through. Their big idea is they have to create their own video game company. So they have to have a logo. They have to have branding and stuff like that. So my example was Let's Get Cracking Games is what I'm calling mine. They have to build all this stuff, and we're going to build all the pages out. So this is just Google Sites. They have to have an About Us page. They have to have a synopsis of one of the games they build, FAQs they have to be able to do, and they have to have a contact page. Real simple stuff. The kids are all motivated to do it. So if you're somebody who's out there and you're like, hey, first of all, I've never built a game. You don't have to build games. Games are storytelling. Storytelling is games. If the kids have read a book, if the kids have read a play, whatever, you can gamify those things very, very quickly. So
I think too, this is a great example of what we've talked about over so many episodes in terms of highly engaging content. So knowing that students are interested in video games, storytelling, creativity. We've talked about the Octalysis framework and how, it brings in those ideas of customization. I'm totally drawing a blank on anything else now. They're not really like hit with any FOMO on this, but that highly engaging because of the ability to customize and create. Do they work together at all, or they work by themselves?
They can. So the interesting thing is the still the COVID situation, right? So the kids can't be right next to one another. That's weird. We do use Padlet for kids to communicate and whatnot, but everyone is very they're very guarded with their ID, and they don't want to change the deal. And so there's one student in particular that's like, hey, I've got my music already set up. I know how the story's going to go, whatever. And I'm like, do what you do, bro. The other thing is, like, this was not my original plan for the summer. My original plan was totally different. And I sat the first day, and this is the other thing about planning versus a plan. When your users tell you something, you change the plan because your users saying, "I'm not interested in that. This is what I'm interested in." And so I had the first day I only had one student, and I come through and I'm like, "Hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking." And he was like, "Eh." So I said, "What are you interested in?" Oh, I play lots of video games. So I was like, "Okay, cool. Give me the rest of this week, and I'm gonna totally shift the plan to video games." Got another student the next day. It's like, "Hey, we changed what this is. This is a video game thing." That was like, "Oh, awesome! I like video games." And another kid shows up. And was like, "All right." Then I had one student. She was like, "I don't play games." So I was like, "Oh, I can change it. I can give you the curriculum I have in the afternoon." She's like, "No, no, no, no. I like what you all are doing. I want to do this now." So she is also building the game from a perspective where her character Periwinkle is very interesting. So she created a character Periwinkle, and her we're going to start with more of the story elements and stuff tomorrow, but it's very interesting seeing somebody who was not a gamer before suddenly say, "Okay, cool, this is kind of interesting," given the way that you're presenting it. So that was pretty dope.
That's actually a really interesting point because you talk to your user, despite the fact that they're not interested in video games, it's still a highly engaging lesson from their perspective that they want to participate in. So giving the opportunity, like being willing to say, "Hey, I'll change it for you." And for her to come back and be like, "No, no, no, you don't need to change it. I think this is interesting." Even if it wasn't my thing coming in, you've made it appealing enough that I still want to participate and engage in it. And it sounds like it's highly engaging. Like you don't have kids who are like, "Ooh, I don't want to do this," because it's not a worksheet. It's a real, authentic. Like these are all skills that they can use going forward. It's meaty. It's fascinating. It's creative, and I feel like those are the elements that make something really engaging. It's not a worksheet.
Well, and they also got to present it to stakeholders the last week, so they have to have something. The other thing is the urgency of, yeah, bro, you got to have your stuff has to be tight because we have people coming in that you have to pitch this video game concept to. Um,
Who are they pitching to?
right now, it's going to be a couple of the Teach for America folks, hopefully, and yeah, my wife is probably going to be one of the people. So we're going to make it Shark Tankish, where hey, this is my idea. This is what was going on. This is let's get cracking games. We do these types of games. We're going to let you play one of our games or whatever. It's going to be interesting. We'll see how they work. All right. So Sutori, oops. Sutori is, and I'm going to go to the home page. If it'll let me log myself out. All right, so Satori is here. I've had it all the way since I was an Interact user, which is also hilarious. Um, but it's super dope. It was originally for social studies teachers. I'm not a social studies teacher. I think every teacher is a social studies teacher though. So kind of saying social studies teachers is kind of redundant. Critical race theory needs to be taught in school. Anyway, um, uh, the dope thing about the situation is it's a timeline kind of tool that allows kids to work together, does have that critical thinking piece. You can research and do inquiry and stuff, but you don't have to. And this is like a lot. They look at it from this historical thing. I looked at it from a how can I host my content so that kids can go and access it when they need to, that I can go and teach by not teaching. That is the whole hustle. You can go at your own pace. All right. So English language arts teachers, communications, and all that kind of stuff like that. You've got templates, you got stuff like that. But I'm going to show you kind of how I roll with it. Let me log myself in. And so when you log in, you will see that you can log in with Clever, so your students can log in with Clever. So that is there. I'm not going to log in with Clever, however. Bada bing. And so you can build collections of folders and stuff. Most of my stuff is just undone or not organized stuff because, again, I'm not the logistics person. I just kind of like, hey, look by the title. I'm like, all right, cool. That's what we do. But the whole idea of the story is pretty dope. And so they do have like Freyer model stuff, which I don't really deal with. Understanding by design, so the UBL type stuff is there, observing with your sentence and stuff. So you have these like, you have a design thinking template, you got a Genius Hour one, but I hate.
Yay,
Other,
5Es.
I'm not a fan of other people's stuff, so I always start with the blank ones just because I like to design my own stuff. So great. So you pop up. I am there, of course. Up here at the top, you can go and add any images that you would like from Unsplash or whatever. So let's say, video games, just to give it a kind of a stylish situation here. I'm an
Oh, that's a
Xbox.
convenient. Integration.
And if I want to move that
Oh,
to
it looks like a
there,
shoelace. Yeah.
I can deal with that a little bit. All right, cool, works. All right, so I've got that deal. So in terms of here, I've got the idea of adding a title and generally, let's call it video games. Let's call it, getting in character. Wonderful. Short introduction to your story. Generally up here, it's goals, the standards, the basic idea I want the students to get into their heads. So let's say, all right, cool. I'm not going to go there yet. Video games are stories and stories.
And so this is what you use to deliver the initial or the instructions for the lesson, right?
Yep. Or you could.
Yeah.
Today we will be exploring how characters in video games help us enjoy the story more. All right. Generally, what I do, just like I do in Canvas, is I like to tell kids what they're going to need in order to do what we need to do, so that they're prepared as well. So you will need, and then I'm going to, bada bang, your iPad or Block Schools account, your character sketch template, your creativity, and I'm going to align that to the left. Well, wonderful. Now I could add the objectives, the goals, all that kind of stuff in there, but for sake of time, we're going to keep it to that. All right. Now, these plus signs are going to be, all over the place. And you will see all of the options I have here. And this is why I like Sutori I like the Wisers, I like the Sutoris, because it gives me options. So I can start with a heading. I can start with just plain text. I can link. I can add an image. I can add multiple choice questions. I can add, video from YouTube, etc., etc. I can add a matching quiz. I can record audio into the actual deal. So if I needed to voice information or instructions for the students, I can do that. I can add a did you know? Perhaps it's kind of a factoid about Super Mario Brothers I want to throw inside there, or a factoid about myself. I can add files, so PDFs and things like that. I can embed directly here. That forum for discussion right on the page, so the kids don't have to go in. I don't have to create a discussion page in Canvas. I can have it right here, and also add a bibliography. So if I need to have a situation where kids need to see where I got information from, or when the kids are building their own Sutoris, I want to see bibliography from them. This can all be built into the tool.
So it's not just something to deliver content, but also students can create their own.
Absolutely. And so if you purchase the product, you also have the ability to have student accounts, and you have unlimited student accounts. So let's just call it character design for right now. All right, cool. So I'm going to hit that plus sign, and I'm going to add a video. And you will see that I've got the ability to go to my Google Drive. I can also voice record again. I can, built into the tool is a voice recorder. So I don't need to have a third party. Didn't used to be like that, but they did that about 6 months ago with the voice recorders built in. But I'm going to go right to, this is the cool thing about Block Schools. I'm going to say, all right, cool. I'm going to go to tutorials. And I'm going to say, I want creating characters, because I don't want to actually record this stuff because they already have it recorded. Great. Click that watch on YouTube. Stop that. Copy that. Back to my tutorial.
Yeah, this is also a great example of you don't have to create the thing yourself. If somebody else has done it better, like a what is it called? Oh my God, I'm totally drawing a blank. There's a whole series on YouTube. Crash Course. Like Crash Course. They have a whole production team behind them to create those videos. So use that because it's going to take you so much time and effort to replicate something like that. Definitely steal and use other people's content. You don't have to create it all yourself.
All right, and so I can keep it on the side like a timeline, or I can say this is important. I want that thing to be the entire first hustle there. And then the kids can comment directly on the video there. Or I can also start that comment chain. Now, does Canvas have a discussion thing? Absolutely. But that's a page I have to add, and this keeps everything in one spot. Discussion pages is one separate page, and a number of other pages I have to have. I can do a bunch of different styles of Canvas page on one Sutori page rather than having to build 5 pages in Canvas. Now I'm keeping it to one page, and one page is independent of Canvas, so if Canvas goes away again, I still have all my content.
Or if it crashes.
Yes.
So, like at the beginning of last year when it crashed, the first day or two of school, now you can just redirect kids to a different link. They can still continue working. And I promise you it will probably crash again at the beginning of next school year.
More than likely. So I'm going to go and click that. Oops, didn't want to do that. So I want this. And I'm going to go and copy this deal. I don't give people access. I'll give the tools access to my so I didn't want to share that. My bad. Man, we'll do something else. So say I'm going to put my link to my website. All right, cool. Now, I'm going to copy that for this reason. Hit the plus sign there. And inside here, if I click that link button, you're going to see all of those tools link. So, Quizlets and Prezzies and Phet Simulators and Google Maps, Flipgrids, Edpuzzle, all those things, they fit very nicely into this tool. So those are a bunch of tools you're probably already using in your classroom. Kahoot and Canva and TinyTap and Padlet and all those things. Those things are already tools that you're using. So they're already being used. Give it a second to think. Bada bing. Now, this is the other cool thing about Google Drive. If I take that link and make sure it's locked down so only Clark County School District people can deal with it, even if the Sutori gets out into the wild, people aren't going to be able to get to that material. Frustrated the devil out of a lot of parents over the deal, but it's a great way to insulate students from the outside world. If you don't have the correct username and password, you're not part of CCSD's instance, you can't utilize this stuff. All right. So cool, I can deal with that situation. And you can go side by side. What I generally do with mine, the important stuff, I make very large. The things that are secondary, I just put to one side or the other. And you can also say, okay, cool. Perhaps that was supposed to be up here. I can move it up. So I can always change the order of things as well. Delete that. Cool. All right. Again, I cannot express how easy this is in terms of, especially if you already had the lesson done. All it is plugging the stuff in here. Again, the only two things that Canvas gives us that are super important are the rostering of students and the ability to grade things, which I'm going to solve in just a second. Go ahead, Webbs.
So how do you then take this Sutori and integrate it into Canvas?
I was almost there. Now, the thing that you want to do with Canvas, and again, this is the golden rule here. Understanding, again, the advantage to Canvas. I'm going to restate it. You roster your students, the grade book is integrated into this deal. So there's only really one page I need to make sure that I have in all my Canvas modules, and that's the assignment page. The other pages are worthless in the grand scheme of things because I can duplicate that process outside of Canvas just as effectively as I can inside of Canvas. So all I'm going to do is this. I'm going to start a new module, And I'm going to call this module, video games. All right, cool. Add module. I'm going to create 3 pages just for kicks and giggles. So I'm going to call one page, that first page, I'm going to call it introduction. Just so kids have some kind of like, here are the standards we're going to deal with. Here's some video that I have that's, hey, this is what we're going to do or whatever. All right.
And we've talked about in the past, like that goal of do 3, 5, or 7 sort of pages or sections. And that way it'll keep it nice and tight and focused so that you don't like blather on forever and your students lose interest.
Second deal, I'm going to make the assignment page, and I'm just going to call that your character. All right, great. Add the item. Last page, I'm going to call it summary. So I'm going to begin the lesson with, here's the things that you're going to be doing in this module. These are the things, the expectation, the things you should learn to be able to do by the time you're finished. The actual assignment, and then, hey, yo, you should be able to do this thing and that thing and this thing by the end of the situation. Now, again, introduction is going to be a regular funky page. I can put a video there. I can put the goals there, whatever I need to. The page that I really want is the middle page, this one. Now, I can build a rubric inside here for the assignment or whatever that's necessary. That's fine. But I'm going to go to this edit page. And fundamentally, all of the Canvas pages have the same information with slight differences. All right. So I'm going to go back here to Sutori, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to build something really quickly. I'm going to put some text. You will create your character and then screen record. This is what I had the kids do today. Record a proof of concept.
Those are super cool, by the way.
Well, I've got a great group of kids. All right, great group of kids. So cool. I'm gonna add some media up here just for kicks and giggles, and I'm gonna, Mario. Great, wonderful. So I've got a picture there, or whatever. There's one thing I'm gonna add here, and I'm gonna go here to my assignment deal. And you see how it has that assignment up there at the top? Oops, don't want the E for edit. I'm going to copy that. I can copy it preemptively. I'm going to add that.
By preemptively, you mean that like you haven't created the assignment yet, but that you know that the link isn't going to change, so you can add it to Sutori now?
Yep. Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to link that so that's connected to my deal. All right. If I hit that share button, I've got the embed. I'm going to make that public. I'm going to copy in the embed code. Throw this bad boy in here. And submit it.
So even if someone were to come across your Sutori page, it would be essentially irrelevant because there's no identifying information or anything.
Nope. And
like it's an interesting lesson, but there's no like kid identifying information.
No kid identifying information. Also, there's no, if they wanted to do the assignment, they're not registered to my Canvas course. So if they click the assignment button, it's not going to do anything. I mean, they could, in theory, do the work, but they would not be able to turn anything in or anything like that, which is the other like benefit to this hustle. All right, let's make sure it didn't show up. I'll throw it inside there. All right, cool. Bada bang. And so my Sutori lives inside my Canvas page now. Great. Bada bang. All right. Now, this essentially gives my kids 2 ways to do the assignment. If they logged into Canvas, story's there. If they just went through Sutori through Clever, story, their time is there as well. I'm utilizing Canvas for what Canvas does well. I'm utilizing Sutori for, it's just easier for me to do the Sutori and stuff and set everything else up. Again, I'm bulletproof now to, okay, we have now transitioned away from Canvas. Or, you know what? We were wrong. We now are going to let you use Google Classroom next school year because there was an outcry and people really wanted to use it. All right, great. I hit that share button. I can share directly to Google Classroom as well. So I am now insulated from, oh yeah, they decided they were going to do some different stuff. All right, great. I can still send it to Google Classroom and I'm still straight. All right. That's kind of, again, the firewall and that safety of saying I'm using this third party tool that still allows me to do Canvas the way they want Canvas to be done. My kids are still, I'm still going to benefit from once I publish this deal. I'm just going to save this very quickly.
We call that, by the way, being highly fault tolerant, because you have the redundancy of if Canvas were to crash, your students can still access Sutori. They will complete the assignment because that still relies on Canvas, but they'd still have access to the materials that they need in order to work through it so that when Canvas does come up, then they can complete the assignment. But should for some reason Clever go down and they can't get to Sutori, they can just go through Canvas.
And so you see that it's right there inside there. If I would have built that thing all the way out, it's wonderful. That link will link me back. So again, a kid who says, I don't want to go to Canvas right now, as long as that kid was logged, it was assigned to my course. When they click that link, it's going to send them right to Canvas. It's going to prompt them to log through Clever into the Canvas page directly to the assignment, and I'm good to go. Go ahead, Webbs.
And if this was part of like your school, like your teacher website on like Google Sites, then you could link to this Sutori, right? And so even if Clever went down, they could still have a way to get to the Sutori to do their work.
Yep, because this embeds wherever.
Right.
So in theory, there's one teacher I spoke to. He's not a Canvas person. He was like, I have all my stuff in Google Sites. I was like, dude, you're a Canvas person. Just link that crap to Google. Just link the assignments from Canvas into the Google Sites. God bless America, bro. You don't need to learn how to use Canvas because you already have your stuff planned. And that is the thing. It is exploiting Canvas, not learning Canvas. It is exploiting it. So if you can exploit it without learning all the ins and outs, are there things that you're going to be like, oh, I could have taken advantage of this or that? If you build the machinery like in a way that's comfortable for you now, then you can learn Canvas at your own pace over the year or whatever. But if you don't do that, then you're in this like arms race trying to understand how to use Canvas, and you're going to get yourself frustrated and whatnot. All right, so again, Sutori and Canvas, I think they go together very naturally, Webbs. I mean, other than the price, maybe I believe it's $79 for the year. Outside the price, it's pretty beneficial in my opinion. And again, it's like $8 a month or something if you did for the school year. And I've never done it as a school-wide solution. That may be something else. You bring it to your administrator and say, look, if we got all the teachers using this tool, how much would they, take off for the price or whatever? I don't know. Never looked into that. Anything to add, Webbs?
I think it just goes back to those diminishing returns. Sorry, I was about to send a tweet. I think it goes back to those diminishing returns. Like, why would you want to invest so much time and effort? One, not knowing if the tool is going to be around, but two, if you don't need to and you've accomplished your goal, then don't spend that time there. Like, build all your stuff in a tool you're comfortable with, whether it be Sutori or Google Sites or Wiser, and then just create those 3-piece modules in Canvas, because not only is that giving you the benefit of not having to learn Canvas really, or being able to learn it at your own pace, but you have that redundancy of if Canvas crashes, you're not screwed.
Oh, facts. And again, first day of school, yep, that happened. You've got the grade pass back problems that we had last school year. You've got a scenario where what if a kid forgets how to log into Clever? They forget their Google stuff, or they forget their password or whatever. I can still, here's the Google site. I'm going to just bring that up on your deal. I'm going to send you the direct link to the Sutori, do the work there, and you can turn it in later on. There's a lot of benefits to that process. And beyond that, hey, I go get a job out of state that doesn't use Canvas. I still got my stuff. If I have a scenario where I was, totally 100% dependent on Canvas, and I decide that some job in New York or Canada or whatever is like, hey, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. That's there. Also, teach entrepreneurship. I can say, you know what, I'm being a consultant now. I don't want to have a scenario in which my stuff is locked in a tool that has been provided to me by my employer, and now I can't get at my material. So that's another thing to kind of look at as well. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're going to go now, Webbs, I think, with this series is like, look, dude, there are shortcuts to this hustle. All right. It's just knowing, here are my plans. These are the goals I'm trying to accomplish. Great. I've got my long range plans. I know what units I'm going to teach, etc. Bringing that knowledge to whatever tool you're going to deal with is going to give you an advantage. But again, if you're trying to plan while learning the tool, you are not going to have a good time at all with this situation.
Yep. I totally agree with that.
You're going to be a super frustrated person in August. And again, it is the middle of June right now. Like, stuff is moving, fam. Moving. And, it's great to, again, no one's saying not to take your mental health breaks, by God. Take your mental health breaks, do what you do. But also have an eye on, you don't want to be stressed out this next school year because it's going to be a weird one with all the learning laws, and kids are 2.5 grade levels behind, and oh my God, and this and that. It's going to be very interesting what the student learning goals are. It's going to be interesting, the stress, and there could be a lot less teachers as well. Just looking at the numbers across the nation. So the more you can automate, and I think Canvas is an automation tool as well. There's a scenario where if the kid is absent, the kid ain't absent. All my stuff is in Canvas. You can go at your own pace and do what you need to do, rather than the thing that would pain me as an instructor was brand new kid shows up to school. We are 3 months into the school a year. That kid doesn't know the procedures. That kid doesn't know where everything is. Now you got to stop what you're doing in order to explain to Bob how to do stuff. If everything's in Canvas, here's a Canvas module. This is how we do this and that and this other thing or whatever. This is how you can catch up. Go at your own pace, Bob. You're good to go. If you don't, and you got to do stuff analog way, that is where the Canvas and the Sutori or whatever other methods that you use is going to be the most beneficial. The differentiation to all the kids at different places, kids coming from different schools. I'm assuming Snyder was the same way as Deering with the transiency. We'd see one kid 1 week and he'd be gone for 2 months, and then he'd come back the next week and you're like, hey, where we at? Where you at, Bob? Oh, I was in XYZ place for 3 months with my grandma. All right, cool. And now you got to catch homie up. So, yep. Sutori, for my money, great tool. Wiser, again, for my money, great tool to go and invest in. Wiser is $32 for the year or something like that. Still relies on Google, so your kids can still log in with Google that way. It's not a true embed like Sutori. When you embed Wiser, it's going to still kick you to their website to deal with that stuff. But I mean, that's a small price to pay in terms of getting things organized, in my opinion. Anything else to add, Webbs?
No.
All right, super cool. Now we will see you. We are off next week, and are we off the week after that too for travel?
I have to look at the schedule. Yeah, I think so.
All right, so we're off for the rest of June. Next week, though, if you're interested, anti-racism, the tools of anti-racism for the PBS deal is that we're gonna start on the 15th, and then the 17th, and then the following week. So there'll be 4 episodes. So for the next 2 weeks, there'll be episodes every Tuesday and every Thursday, which is dope that we don't have the show because I would be tired of doing double duties.
Where do people watch that?
I will put the link in the I'll put the link on our Facebook, and I'll send that link to you too. So if, you tweet it out or whatever, we can throw that in there. But you can go. It's totally free. Doesn't cost anything. We have some baller guests. If you are someone who watches, have kids who watch Molly Denali, their creative lead is going to be with us on Tuesday, talking a little bit about Native education and whatnot. That's going to be super dope. It's not a topic that gets a lot of shine, unfortunately. So she'll be really cool. And some other people, hopefully in the pipeline, are going to be really, really cool people as well. Yeah, so it should be cool. That's all we got for tonight. Look into Sutori. Play around with that tool. The learning curve is super short. If you can put links someplace and type, you're going to be good with Sutori. It's not going to be a problem.
I did share it on our Twitter. I can go back and share it over our Facebook and other social media, depending on where you're watching. But yeah, if you follow us on Twitter at Trust a Hoodlum, then you'll see that. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until I share it on other social media.
Holla holla. So, God bless America and Kyrgyzstan as well. I like that saying, Kyrgyzstan. Uzbekistan, I like as well. I like all the old Eastern Bloc, Soviet Bloc countries. They all have like very fun names. Indeed.
The F1 race last weekend was in Azerbaijan, and I went down this whole rabbit hole reading the Wikipedia page for Azerbaijan.
The most interesting like stuff about countries. The CIA fact book is like wonderful when you start reading about countries. Like I spend hours sometimes of like so we're in this like this is totally an aside. We're in this like we watch a lot of the House Hunter International and Caribbean Life and stuff like that. So we're sitting there, of course. As soon as they say a country, then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the CIA fact book, boom, boom, and they have all this information that's probably useless, but it's really fun to read about. So hopefully you have some kids that you can introduce to the CIA fact book. I don't know if they.
I used that a lot when I was in the classroom.
They probably like track people that go to the CIA fact book too, probably. Either looking for recruits or looking for like, interesting people to keep tabs on. I don't know. Indeed. Let me do the thing, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.